You ever wonder what really separates a chicken dinner from a crushing defeat in a battle royale? I mean, it's got to be more than just having quick reflexes, right? Well, today, we're not just going to give you a few tips. No, we are going to deconstruct the hidden systems, the psychology, the code, and the data that actually determine who wins. Okay, let's get into it. First, let's just talk about the sheer scale here. In 2020, just that one year, mobile games pulled in an absolutely staggering $77.2 billion in revenue. To put that in perspective, that's nearly half of the entire global gaming industry's income. This isn't just a hobby. It's a massive economic engine, and it's built on some very specific, very well designed mechanics. So, yeah, with that much money flying around, you have to ask the question, what's really going on under the hood? What are the little gears and levers that influence how we play, what we decide to buy, and at the end of the day, whether we win or lose? Because trust me, it's not just about what you see on the screen. To figure that out, we're going to break this down into four parts. First, we'll get into the player's mind. Then, we'll look at the anatomy of the game's design itself. After that, we'll uncover the role of randomness, the ghost in the machine. And finally, we'll see how you can use all this knowledge to get a real analytical edge. So, first up, let's get inside our own heads. Because before any shot is fired, before you even jump out of the plane, there's often a transaction. Why do we buy that cool new skin or that flashy weapon charm? What psychological levers are being pulled? Well, to analyze this, researchers use a framework called the Theory of Consumption Values, or TCV. Basically, it's a fancy way of modeling why people choose to buy things. It breaks down our decisions into different kinds of value. Think of it like a blueprint for understanding why we want what we want, whether it's in the real world or a virtual one. Now, take a look at this. It might seem a little complex, but this is that theory in action. This is the actual model from a study on millennial gamers. Don't worry about following every single line. Just understand that each of those arrows represents a potential connection. How things like social value or emotional value eventually lead to the decision to click buy. It's pretty much a map of the gamer's mind during a purchase. And when they crunched all the data, these were the factors that really mattered, the ones that had a major positive impact. You've got conditional value, like how useful an item is in a specific situation, and emotional value, of course. But look at the others: visual quality, the ability to customize, and trendiness. These aren't just vague feelings, they are measurable things that drive us to spend money. And this quote right here, it just nails why customization is such a big deal. It's not just about looking cool. It taps into a really deep, fundamental human need for self-expression, for creating an identity. In the game world, the items we pick are basically extensions of who we are, or maybe who we want to be. But here's the kicker. Out of all those factors, one stood out as having the absolute strongest effect on whether someone would buy something. And it wasn't how much it cost or even how cool it made them feel. It was trendiness. Just the simple perception that an item is popular and in right now. That was the number one driver. All right, so let's shift gears from the player's mind to the game's actual bones. What are the core mechanics that developers are building into these games? And more importantly, how do those choices line up with what we, the players, say we actually want? You might be surprised to see there's a bit of a disconnect. So this chart shows what developers are focused on. If you look across a whole bunch of modern first-person shooters, the most common combat mechanics they put in are aiming down sights, ADS, and reloading. I mean, they're in pretty much every single title. This is the developer's side of the coin. But then you ask the players what's most important to them. And, well, you get a completely different set of priorities. The highest rated movement mechanics are jumping, sprinting, and crouching. These super fundamental actions are what players feel make a game really satisfying to control. So when you put them side by side, a really clear pattern emerges. Developers are often busy implementing these complex combat systems like weapon mounting, but what players say they care about most are the basic core movement mechanics. Now, this doesn't mean one side is right and the other is wrong, but it does highlight this really interesting tension in game design, that balance between complex new features and just the core feel of the game. Next up, let's talk about the elements that can make or break any given match: randomness. It's kind of like the ghost in the machine, the thing that makes sure no two games are ever exactly the same. But how does this system of chance actually work with player skill to decide who comes out on top? Now, the key concept we have to get our heads around here isn't just randomness itself, but perceived randomness. This is all about a player's gut feeling. How much do you feel like luck is in the driver's seat instead of your own skill? Two games could have the exact same statistical randomness, but they can feel totally different based on how that randomness is shown to you. So, a study on PUBG players tried to figure out which random element had the biggest impact on this feeling. Was it where the safe zone decided to close? Was the quality of the loot you found? The answer is actually pretty interesting. It's weapon accuracy. Yep, specifically the random deviation of your bullets, what a lot of gamers call bloom. That was the single biggest factor. You know the feeling, right? When you aim perfectly, but your shots just decide to go somewhere else because of some hidden dice roll. That's the moment when players feel like the game is completely out of their control. And this creates a really clear chain of events. A game's random systems, especially weapon accuracy, directly shape how random you perceive the game to be. That feeling, when you mix it with how skilled you think you are, directly influences whether you think you have a chance to win. It's a psychological path from a single game mechanic straight to your confidence. So, we've looked at the psychology behind why we buy things, the mechanics of how games are built, and the huge role that randomness plays. So, what now? How do we take all of this and go from just being a player to becoming a true analyst of the game itself? Well, the first step is using the right tools. The lead players, they don't just rely on their gut feeling. They use all these third-party apps to break down their performance. I'm talking about replay managers to review key moments, map visualizers to analyze their strategy, and stat trackers to find hidden patterns in their data. They literally turn their gameplay into hard information. And this quote from a Reddit user just perfectly captures that analytical mindset. This person isn't just complaining about a weapon getting nerfed. No, they're analyzing the systemic change. They get that a 45% reduction in rate of fire isn't just a number. It fundamentally changes the click timing and the muscle memory you need to use that weapon well. I mean, that is some expert level thinking right there. And this is what it all boils down to. This is what defines an expert mindset. It's not about seeing more stuff on the screen. It's about seeing what actually matters. Experts are masters at filtering out all the noise and focusing their attention on the information that will help them win. They don't just play the game, they analyze the constant dance between the game systems and their own skill. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you drop into a match, think about it. Now that you know about the psychology of trendiness, the huge importance of movement, and how the perception of randomness works, are you actively making choices based on these hidden systems, or are you just following the path the designers laid out for you? The answer to that could be your real key to victory.